Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rosslyn Hill Chapel, a spiritual home for open minds. I'm Andrew Appleyard, Chapel Treasurer and the Worship Assistant for today's Unitarian service. This morning, fellow board member and China expert Roger Mason leads the service on Chinese spirituality. During the service, there is also a children's chapel and creche called Bright Lights for children aged 2 and above. Babies under 2 are welcome in the creche, but they need to be accompanied by an adult. If you're watching at home, you can enjoy tea and conversation with the virtual side aisle gathering via the Zoom at midday today. Just click the link in the YouTube description to find it. You will also find the order of service in the description so you can follow along. If you're in the chapel, please join us after the service for refreshments in the side aisle. Our bookcase library, which isn't out, but will be out after the service, is now available every Sunday, where you can borrow books about Unitarianism and other world religions and philosophies too. If you wish to borrow a book, please write your details in the blue book before removing it. This evening at 6 p.m, we have our regular mindfulness meditation, followed at 7 p.m. by music and meditation. More information about our events and services is on our website and also in the June edition of the Open Mind newsletter. We take the collection during the postlude music at the end of the service by cash or contactless device. Our chosen charity for the month of June is the Liberty Choir. This charity aims to unlock hearts through song, providing choirs in prisons. These choirs help develop skills and self-confidence, open up the world of arts through singing, and provide access to new social networks as the participants re-enter the wider community. We will divide our collection between the upkeep of this chapel and this very worthy cause, Liberty Choir.
I'm Roger Mason, a chapel board member, and I'm a lifelong Unitarian, and also I'm a geologist, which is quite relevant here. I worked in China for many years, based in Wuhan, a large city which, when I first went there, nobody had ever heard of, but everybody knows about now because it's where the coronavirus outbreak started. The words I'm using for candle lighting come from my father, who was also a Unitarian minister. I light our chalice to illuminate our debt to the rest of the world. In China, where the dust of ages have filled the valleys with fertile soil, they remember many dynasties and touch eternal jade of living things. And we also light a candle for peace, in Gaza and Palestine, in Ukraine and round the world. My father's words, Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted because they are not. Now, we're going to sing our first hymn. I apologize, I've put the wrong number in your yellow order of service. It's from the green book in front of you, and it's number 279. And as is our custom, Michael here will play the tune right through once, and then we'll sing the hymn. And we now come to a story for all ages. I think probably my voice is loud enough. If the children would like to come and join me, I will tell you a story from China. I think I'll be all right.
We need it for online.
Oh, right, that's okay.
Just put that in your pocket.
Okay.
There you go. That should be okay.
Right. In China, it's very hot in the summer. What's the hottest you've ever felt? Yes.
Me and my mommy, we went to my mommy's country and it was very hot.
Right, so you may know what this is like. So it's very, very hot. And in Wuhan, there's a narrow street and it had only one tree in the street. And the lorries and the buses and the cars and the motorbikes all went through the street. So the air became terrible to breathe. Not only that, what the tree really hated was the dogs. Why do you think the tree didn't like the dogs?
So some dogs, they put their hand on the tree
Yes,
and then they bark.
Well, yes, but what else do they do? Yes, they go to the toilet against the tree. So the tree got very, very tired of how hot it was, how smelly it was, and all the dogs. So one night, when there was no one around, the tree pulled its roots out of the ground and it walked away to the park, put its roots down again with all its sisters and brothers. Lovely fresh air. And it settled down. Well, when the day came, the sun rose, the first person to come to the street was a lady who had a cart, and she sold breakfast, noodles for breakfast, like spaghetti. And she said, "Where's my shady spot? It's going to be terribly hot." The next person to come was a man who mended bicycles. And he said, "Where's the tree I hang the bicycle wheels and the bicycle tires on the tree? What's happened to our tree?"
Last night, the tree was moved because the dogs were like weeing on them, and they were like going to the park and get some fresh air.
Yes, it's a story, remember. So the third person to come was a young man, and he'd carved his girlfriend's name on the tree. And he said, "Where's the tree? My girlfriend won't know that I'm in love with her." By this time, quite a lot of people had come, and they were all complaining, "Terrible, terrible, our tree's gone. Where's it gone?" And they all carried on grumbling until a little girl came down and said, "I think I've seen our tree. It's in the park up the hill." I said, "No, must be wrong." But some of the people came, and the young man said, "Yes, that's our tree," because he could see his girlfriend's name carved on it. And then the man from the bicycles said, "Yes, it's my tree, because I can see the branch that I hang the tires on." So everybody walked up into the park and up to the tree, and they all said to the tree, "Please come back, we really miss you." So they got through the day, and the next night the tree pulled its roots out of the ground, walked back down to the street, and went back in its old place. And everybody was very happy, except perhaps the dogs. Thank you very much. So can we sing the children out, Michael? Margaret to give our first reading. Oh, my apologies. Prayer of names. Thank you. Right, as we begin our service, Michael will play music for us. If you have anyone who is concerning you at the moment, please say their name out loud so that we can share your concern. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the reminder. Margaret, please give our first reading.
This is a reading of Roger's translation of the first verse of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao we name is not the real Tao. The name we give is not its real name. By ridding ourselves of desire, we may grasp the Tao. But with desire, we only see its outcomes. These two things have different names, but come from the same mold, and both are mysterious. The mold is a mystery, deeper and darker than other mysteries. It is the door to all secret essences.
Can we go on to our second hymn, which is correct? And again, Michael will play the tune through, and then, if you can, please rise and sing. It's number 126 in the green hymn book, The Larger View. So let's enter a period of prayer and meditation. Ruler of heaven, Tien-di, we, your humble subjects, ask for your mercy to the people of earth's middle kingdom. Keep from them the natural world's problems of earthquakes, fire and flood, the problems of disease, starvation, and plague, and the problems of invasion, war, and civil strife. Amen. Now I invite you to come forward and light a candle while Michael plays us some music.
The second reading is based on the Feng Shui Handbook. Human beings are always seeking harmony on a physical and psychological level. Feng Shui Taoist principles can be depicted and used like a navigational map or a car's navigational screen, but with one crucial difference. The location of a human being at any moment determines our own directions and relationships with the rest of the surrounding world. The dragon stands ahead of us to our left and is a creature unseen in the natural world. It is far-sighted and has amazing power, symbolizing the wisdom in our minds. The phoenix stands ahead to our right and is also a creature unseen in the natural world. With its great beauty, it creates deathless inspiration. The tiger stands behind us to the right. It evokes physical strength, but also reflects the danger of violence in our nature. The tortoise stands behind us to the right, in its proper position at the back. It conveys a sense of stability by its strong shell. It conveys stability, longevity, and freedom from fear of attack from behind. The snake stands at our center, protected by the four outlying creatures, receiving information from all of them.
The symbol for the Tao, Tao Tao, it's the same name. Our grandfathers said it as Tao. Modern Chinese Anglification says Tao, and I will use Tao throughout. I had a progressive religious education teacher when I was at secondary school in the 1950s, and he introduced Taoism in a religious education class about comparative religion. I concluded that Taoism was either a complicated system of superstition or a kind of early science. And it was on my first visit to China to teach geology in 1986 that transformed my understanding. One hot afternoon, I was doing field geology, going out looking at rocks, with Professor Yeo Zhendong, who had invited me to China and who sadly died about 6 weeks ago, aged 92. It was a very hot afternoon, and we called at a temple to ask for some water to drink, which the monks supplied. It was the first Taoist temple I had been into, and a number of things were different from the more numerous Buddhist temples. Buddhist temples in China will either have monks, male worshippers and supporters, or female monks and nuns. So the first Catholic missionaries to get into China, some of them even believed that they must be Catholics, but they weren't. Taoist temples were different. First of all, the images in front of which everybody or people came made offerings, usually of fruit, and burned incense. These were figures that were completely unfamiliar to me. I didn't know who they were. And secondly, the religious supporters withdrawing from life were both male and female. So it was quite a difference. The only statue in Taoist temples that I later recognized, not on this first visit, was Hua Mulan, who is the heroine of not one but two Disney films. Under the feudal ruling system in China, her aged father was required to go and fight in the army, and she dressed up as a man and fought in his place. I visited, on the same visit to China, I visited her temple, which is about 30 miles from Wuhan, on a prominent peak. And I was very surprised. Remember, this was only 10 years after the end of the great proletarian cultural revolution. So I was surprised to find active temples in China with people going there to worship. I asked why a temple devoted to Hua Mulan would stand outside, and was clearly many people were going there to visit. And I was told that Mao Zedong had taught that women hold up half the sky, and the temple was opened because it was to a female deity. Traditional Taoism holds that if you meditate on the Tao, you can become immortal. Taoist experts prepare medicine which you are supposed to eat in the hope of becoming immortal. China's first great emperor, Qin Shi Huang, followed this and probably shortened his life taking pills that were full of mercury. On my last visit to actually the same temple in 2016, I went to visit the shrine, and the expert there swindled me out of the equivalent in Chinese currency of £10. So you can see that Taoism is a very mixed religious tradition. China has three traditional religions: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. My present Chinese teacher holds that Confucius, who was a real person, wasn't really a religious teacher at all. He was a philosopher and educationist. Buddhism was imported into China at around the beginning of the Christian era. It didn't come simply, it filtered in several waves. So it's not a native Chinese belief system. Taoism is, and that makes it very popular with the Communist Party today. as the most characteristically Chinese strand of what we call spirituality. It's set down in the Tao Te Ching that Margaret read us. And this is the Tao. This is its Chinese symbol. There's nothing holy about it, as, for example, in the Jewish religion, devout Jews do not utter the true name of God. You'll see this sign on motorways. It just means the way, so you'll see signs which delineate the different lanes on a motorway: fast lane, medium lane, slow lane, down. The way, therefore, in the name Tao Te Ching means the way as a path or a road, and indeed the Chinese character indicates that by the way it's written. Like other Chinese classics, like Confucius's Analects, the Tao Te Ching takes the form of short verses, which Margaret read us one. And this was because the majority of the Chinese population until the last century was illiterate or semi-literate, and it was possible to memorize the individual verses. The verses can be translated in many different ways. And the opening verse that Margaret read expresses the ambiguity and significance of the name. I will introduce to you a translation as the book of the way and of virtue. Chinese tradition holds that the Tao Te Ching was written by a spiritual master called Lao Tzu, and that he met Confucius when he was an older man and Confucius was relatively younger, during the 6th or early 5th century before the time of Christ. Modern scholars, both in China and in the West, believe that Lao Tzu, and the name just means the old master, is a legend, and the Tao Te Ching is a compilation of ancient sayings. There are other Taoist works, the I Ching, which is a guide to life and the future, accessed by making a random selection of 3 grass stalks, and then reading from the book a verse which you can always understand in different ways. Another is the Huainanzi, which is a systematic exploration of the natural world and is the basis of Chinese medicine, martial arts, and feng shui, geomancy, the Chinese art of placing things, buildings. And talking to Andrew at the beginning, I suggested perhaps I should make a feng shui survey of the place where you're sitting. It will not be straightforward, I'll tell you. Andrew's reading is from a modern feng shui master, still with us, and is an example of the kind of way that Taoist understanding is presented. You won't be surprised to find that the first Westerners to reach China said it was all superstition. More recently, people have come to realize that it contains more, including early Chinese science. So Taoism led to the Chinese discovery, for example, of the magnetic compass. Wasn't invented for navigating ships. It was invented for the Taoist master to come and visit your house and tell you whether you should tear it down and build it somewhere else. Taoist spirituality became popular in the USA in the 1960s, especially I Ching divination. Taoist and Buddhist temples have existed alongside each other ever since Buddhism arrived from India. And, for example, Zen Buddhism was expounded by a series of Taoist or Buddhist masters who had learned about the Taoist view in China. It's called Chan Buddhism in China, and it arrived, like so many other aspects of Japanese culture, from China around 1,000 years ago. The Zen method of grasping spiritual truth by intuition rather than by painstaking study of the very, very voluminous Buddhist scriptures, that's very much a Taoist frame of thought. My encounter with Taoism is from its profound influence on Chinese poetry and literature. I don't know if any of you have seen television series about Sun Wukong, the Chinese monkey king. He's clearly an aspect of a Hindu deity, Hanuman, but there's a famous story of how a monk traveled across the Himalayas and across the great rivers that flow down from them in western China and went to India to collect a correct version of the Buddhist scriptures. On the way, he fights. He has superpowers, and he fights against various monsters. Most of them he beats, mostly by hitting them over the head, but some of them are too powerful, and the Buddhist goddess Guan Yin, who has a shrine in every Buddhist temple in China, has to come from her palace in the far south, auspicious direction, and rescue him and his companions. When China is prosperous and stable, as it has been in this century, Chinese teachers emphasize the teachings of Confucius, down to Xi Jinping today. When times are bad and unstable, then they tend to follow Lao Tzu. And this tradition has survived Mao Zedong and the Communist Party's atheism. I'll end with a poem about becoming a Taoist by Wang Wei, a great Chinese poet who lived from 701 to 761 of the Common Era. And this is what he says: "In your late years, be tranquil. Ignore your 1,000 cares. Clear your mind and be still. Take a walk in the woods. The pine-scented breeze will loosen your clothes, and moonlight will play through the trees like a lute. While the fishermen sing on the riverbank, be done with your boss and your suit." Thank you. And now, can we sing our final hymn? The words are in your order of service, and we've got the right hymn this time. Shining Through the Universe. Once again, Michael will play us the tune, and then if you can, stand up and we'll sing it. I should say the words to this were written by David Dawson, who was my age, strong man, sadly died in hospital in the first wave of the COVID outbreak. And if you look in your hymn book, you'll see he was responsible for compiling almost all the tunes in it. And he wrote this tune. Shining through the universe runs the golden thread, black along with white back, yellow, green and red. Cooling
Thank you, Roger, for that enlightening and wonderful insight on China. That was fantastic. Wishing you all the very best for the rest of the day and the rest of the week. Please go in peace.
May your feet follow the way.
There'll be a music while we do the collection, but thank you, Roger. That was really lovely.
So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Andrew, who's bailed me out. And thank you all for coming and devoting your time and also your treasure. Go now in peace.